Jeff Kanange live here at Citizen Television, here with 4 youthful legislators. It sounds like a law firm. Amisi, Kuria, Salasia, and Harun. Incredible, fantastic. Good to see all of you guys. Thank you so much for coming. Let's start with you, Harun. Umi.
Yes.
Umi Harun. The royal visit. King and Queen in town. I mean, they've been given a literally red carpet welcome. But then yesterday at the state banquet, the king stopped short of apologizing for the atrocities during the Mau Mau.
I mean, I think that's a discussion that should happen at some point. And to even see that it's something that's coming up shows how much and how far we've come as a country, because there was a time when such topics were hush-hush. So for Kenyans to even, push and bring up the discussion, request for the apologies and all that, that shows how much work and information that has gone into the wider public. So kudos to Kenyans for asking for what's right.
Yeah. Salasia, should he have apologized?
I think he should, but maybe from just my own observation, from his own coming, I can conclude that it was a blessing to the country. Because it brought together the country, whereby we could see the opposition leader and the government coming together. It was a very good sign. So it was a plus for the country.
Yeah. Kuria?
There's a sign of the competitiveness of Kenya as a destination globally. Because remember, this is probably the 4th visit the king is making after his coronation. And therefore, that his choice of Kenya as one of the first countries he gets to visit after his coronation, probably the 4th, is a big win to Kenya, because it means that there's a lot of confidence of investors and tourists and leadership across the world. And remember, this is also coming just after we hosted the climate summit a few months ago. So we're finding Kenya becoming a first of many things, including it being a destination of such visits, whether it's the climate summit or now the King of England coming to us. But most importantly, you asked a very important question: should we see him apologize? I'm not old enough to know that the atrocities that we faced, or that our generation faced, because I think I'll have to ask my dead grandfather about it. Yeah. But most recently, I know the story of Agnes Wanjiru. A lady who died in the hands of British soldiers, and there has been continuous calls for justice. So even before we go to what happened pre-independence...
You're talking about Batuk, right?
Yes.
The British forces, yes.
Yes, let's talk about Agnes Wanjiru, someone who died clearly in the hands of these British soldiers, and let us ask for justice for this lady. And when we're doing that, that also become a reflection of us, because Jeff, I think we blame a lot on racism. But I think we also our own as Kenyans have a lot of negative, reverse racism, where we get anything white, anything Western, anything English becomes more important than what we believe in. And therefore, this is also a reflection that if this king flies here and realizes that we are part of the English history, that the English countries, the England will not be where they are if we were not their colonies, it's time for us to stand up and realize our value, and not just see anything white and anything British as better than what's black and what's Kenyan.
Yeah, good point. Hamisi?
Yeah.
Your thoughts?
Yeah, it's good, always good to apologize. But I think it's not the right time. First of all, will he be apologizing for? What does he want to apologize for? Is it for the atrocities that were committed? Is it for colonialism? And it's so coincidence that at the same time, the president of Germany was also in Tanzania, actually today. He did actually apologize.
Yes.
Unlike here, he was just about to. But in Tanzania, he did apologize for the atrocities because it was a German colony. So coincident. But Jeff, the journey we've traveled to, in colonialism. It has not been easy. We read it in books. It's a history for the Mau Mau fighters, how the colonialists came. And by the way, the Britons are not the first people to come here. The Portuguese came here in 1600, 1700. They were chased away by Arabs from the coastal areas. And the Britons just came later on around 1901. They've been here dominance for about 60 years. Now we are at 60 years of independence. We are still asking for apologies, or we are still expecting apologies. I don't think it's the right time. I think we are beyond there, because if you are going to apologize, then you have to say, what are you apologizing for? Colonialism ended 60 years ago. Do you apologize 60 years later? So there must be something you think you are tying to that apology. Is it that we are so economically dependent to them, and you've seen the emancipation of the African nations and, of course, Kenya, and now you think it's the right time to apologize? Why now? That's the question. Why now? Yeah.
Good question. And brings me to my point, because in 1994 and also 1911, Maasai were moved from Laikipia all the way down to where they are now. Right? And they've tried to petition. In fact, they held a press conference last week trying to see if they can get compensation. We have had 5 successive presidents since independence. None of them have addressed this. And again, it's that same, why? Why not?
Yeah. Okay.
Because we can claim independence, but we cannot claim sovereignty. Because even though we attained self-rule, are we really ruling ourselves? Are we really governing ourselves? Because if you look in terms of how we govern, we rely a lot on Britain institutions. And all these Britain institutions, when you think about IMF, World Bank, and all these institutions, who are their owners? So as long as we're not able to budget, to finance ourselves, we still remain slaves of the West.
So it's a situation of the hand that feeds.
Yes, of the hand that feeds. Because there are things that we're not able to really speak out on, because we don't own ourselves. Because the road that the express we were very proud of, come on, it doesn't belong to us. It's someone else's property, and they could come for it any time. The SGR we pride ourselves in using belongs to someone else. The port of Mombasa, if you think about any critical infrastructure we have in this country, we cannot claim ownership to it. And that makes it complicated, because when we want to make a decision on our own, come on, if you owe your landlord money, you can hardly stay in your apartment. You can have loud music on your apartment when you owe the landlord some money. He's going to come and say you're going to switch down your music or lower your volume down, else I'll kick you out. And you can't do nothing because you have not paid your rent. So until that time as a country that we become not just independent in terms of self-rule, but sovereign in terms of our being able to finance our own expenses as a country, only then can we claim to be really sovereign.
And independent.
Independent.
Last night, President Ruto gave a very bold speech, talking about the ghosts of the past. Very bold. As young leaders, what would you do? What would you do to address historical injustices? Umi?
I mean, Jeff, honestly speaking, as a young person, for me, historical injustices has never been a thing of the past. Because I come from Garissa, I come from the nomadic region, the northern Kenya. I won't have to explain all that history for you, from the Wagala massacre to up until now. The detention in 2015, the ongoing and the current abduction. So for me, when you ask me 60 years of being a young, 60 years of independence and being a young Kenyan, I have so much anger because we still have a long way to go. And from me, from where I sit, I enjoy so much privileges being a young member of parliament, just because I sit in the House. But as of just this month, 4 young people have been abducted from my county.
Why?
You tell me. We've asked for answers from the security. We had to put on pressure. 3 were released. 1 was taken as of 2 days ago. He's a local young man. Everybody knows him. Everybody in Garissa is saying, we know this gentleman is called China. We grew up with him. He's been abducted. Why? Everybody knows the businesses that he's engaged in. So when you ask me where we are as a country and where we are headed, even before I speak on a national level, I have so much anger because I have gone through this, I have experienced it, and there's no improvement because this particular regime campaigned to protect young people, campaigned to protect the hustlers. But we don't see any protection. It's always threats after threats, intimidation. So we still have a long way to go. And when Caleb speaks of, what are we asking for? Sometimes you realize you're not even asking for too much. It's very simple. Just give Kenyans the freedom they need. That's it.
That's it.
That's it.
Peter Selassie.
I think we still have a lot to address when it comes to the issues of historical injustice. And number one, we can talk about the economy that we are still going through today. It means we are still slaves. And one way to address this, you realize that they still need to apologize more because the institutions that they brought to us to rule us, it's not like working for us. And until that time when, as a country, we realize that our situation that we are running in is different from what they are having there. Look at this. You realize that this country, we had many presidents. We had President Moi, President Kibaki, and President Uhuru, and we have now President Ruto. And you will realize that any president who has relied on the side of the West, he has always remained to be, the country has always remained not to be moving. I've been to the Ghana, and they rely so much on the Western, the economy has collapsed. The same look, if it was like, for example, Kibaki, when he came and went to the China, we saw the economy was opening up. We saw even after the President Ruto, when he came into the leadership, he relied so much to the Western. And you realize that nothing has been moving, but the economy is not doing well. So it is now a high time that as a country, we need also to have our own and say, this is, I used to see Mheshimiwa Ndindi talking about that Africa is our business. So we need also to have like Kenya is our business so that we can see where do we want to be as a country than by addressing our own issues. So there is a lot that we need to address in terms of injustice. And until that time, we will fail to listen from their advices. Like they will tell you, oh, add this, add this. Then you must realize that there must be some people who are misadvising. And so as a country, maybe during these bipartisan talks, we need to come and reason together. Where do we want to go as a country?
I'll get back to the bipartisan talks in a moment. Caleb Hamisi, since independence, I think we started off on a wrong foot with a powerful presidency. I mean, the first year there was a prime minister for the first year, and then Jomo Kenyatta became president, and from there was a powerful presidency from Jomo Kenyatta, Arap Moi, even bits of Kibaki up until the constitution changed. Should we have remained a sovereignty because we look like we adopted a monarchy almost?
It looks so. Of course, the British is still a constitutional monarchy. Mm-hmm. That's why we are seeing the king, not the president.
Yes.
If I ask him, so he's the president.
And he's the head of state.
And he's the head of state.
Yes.
And there's a prime minister.
Correct.
Who has also some deep roots in Kitale, my constituent, by the way. Yeah.
The Sunak family.
Exactly. Yeah, the father.
Yes.
Was born in Kitale. Yeah, followed the history before they went to Tanzania.
Yes.
And now eventually found themselves in Britain.
The UK, yeah.
And in UK. So Kitale is somewhere in the globe. But your
But you wasn't able
question.
to realize that when he became the Prime Minister. Before then, he wasn't useful at all.
Yeah. And remember, Obama is not very far from Kitale.
Yes,
So,
correct.
yeah, but your question is
So we
pertinent
should
because,
have a president.
of course, I was going there. Your question is pertinent. Looks like we still have some tenets of constitutional monarchy. From the Prime Minister. Of course, we borrowed heavily, having been colonized by the British. We had to, obey their leadership architecture. But Jeff, remember why we had anti-colonial forces in the name of Mau Mau. They were not really about the economy or the leadership. One was because the land has been taken. In fact, for your information, historically, if you look at the origin of Mau Mau, they'll tell you it used to be called the Land Freedom Fighters. Correct. Army. Actually, they were the Land Freedom Armies. They were army. In fact, the British had to camouflage the name army so that they don't legitimize the group. So they had to say the Mau Mau so that they look like it's an illegal, anti-colonial forces. But we gained independence, freedom of political freedom, not economic freedom. I think we are still colonized economically. We just took the political freedom part of it. Mm-hmm. You remember even in South Africa when Nelson Mandela was released, and there was now, should we take, should we, after apartheid, should we take both the power and the economic power? Nelson says that if you give Africans, they're not still mature for the economic power. They'll fight and kill each other. Okay? Yeah. So we give them the political freedom first, then economic will come later. But, Jeff, we are still economically colonized. And that's why the president is up in arms. He's wondering, why are we trading with dollar? Why is trade agreements not skewed, towards the superpower? Why the Africans disadvantaged in all treaties and agreements and conventions? Why are we not trading on equal platform? It's because we didn't gain the economic power. We gained the political power. So we are ruling ourselves, but we don't have the economic power. We are still controlled. That's why you see the British establishments and the enterprises. You see the Americans' enterprises. You see the Spanish enterprises. But you don't see a Kenyan enterprise in UK. You'll not see a Kenyan enterprise flourishing. M-Pesa was a Kenyan identity, an African identity. Why is it in American enterprise or in the Britain enterprise? It cannot be absorbed there. That is the economic colonization I'm talking about. They will not find, the king will not become a president here, but the king will set up a business here. Okay? So there is that economic empowerment that we never achieved, and it is going to sort of colonize us for a long time. And you can see when the Africans are trying to catch up with the industrialization, somehow the economy twists towards technology, and we are still disadvantaged. We still bounce back. And we are now struggling to catch up with the new technology and all that. We will always revolve and evolve around emerging technologies in the globe for the many years to come. So,
yeah, speaking of which, Commander Kuria, it's taken 60 years for us to get here. Is it going to take another 60? Because most of us will be gone.
Mm-hmm. Most likely we shall.
Maybe Umi will be here.
I'll be around. Yeah.
and of course,
I think I'll be. I turn 35 in a few weeks. So.
Plus 60 is 95.
Yes,
okay, you'll be fine.
Most likely. I might be blind that time, but I'll be around.
I'll still be seeing you.
I beg to disagree with my friend here, because I think as Kenyans, we tend to really look down on ourselves. And if you look at some technology like M-Pesa, What it has done, it has revolutionized payments globally. Now you see Google has, I think it's Google Wallet. Apple has, I think Apple Wallet, I forget the name that's called. So the fact that we started mobile phone payment through M-Pesa, it has taken the world 15 years in the least to catch up with us. So in terms of technology, in terms of mobile payment, Kenya is ranked one of the best globally. And sometimes this is what we don't appreciate about ourselves. If you look at the human capital across the West, the economy of England and of the United States is actually driven by immigrant communities. And these immigrants, that's why a country like US has to have a program called green cards, where we think it's a favor they're doing to us by making it a lottery that we win. But it's not a lottery. They look at your skill set, and they only give the best of what Kenyans a chance to go there. And now if you go there, you find the best brains in whichever sector, whether you go to technology, medicine, anywhere, you will find an immigrant. And chances are that immigrant will be African. And chances are that that person will be Kenyan. So it's just that now, because they have to when now you go there, the only thing that they've done better than us is that, first of all, when you get there, they have to strip you of your Kenyanism. So for you to fully get all the benefits, to get a social security number and all that, then you have to become a citizen. So when you become a citizen, then you become an American or become a British. You're no longer Kenyan anymore. But really, the economies are driven by our human capital. Their technologies like mobile phone transfer is our innovation. And I think most of the time, we tend to look down on ourselves because we have been made to think that we're a third world country, we are all that. Come on.
It's the leadership.
To be honest, the king had many countries to visit. So he didn't just choose Kenya because he likes us. He chose Kenya because Kenya is a critical ally to his monarchy. That's a fact. But we will think here thinking that the king is doing us a favor. He's not. We give him the best training grounds for his army. So we're not giving him a favor.
Yeah.
We are a strategic ally to him.
We're just
That's why he
advancing their
chooses
interests.
him to. So he's coming here to advance his interests. But how do we think about the king's visit as Kenyans? We think he's doing us a favor. He's not.
He's not.
And let me add two things to
Yeah.
that, because I picked two key things. The first one being, during the colonial era, there was a rush to the scramble for Africa. You remember that sphere of influence and everything.
Yeah.
And at that time, it was plain, we are coming to colonize these Africans, that was it. But now it's coming in form of aid. It's coming in form of bilateral engagements. And look at who is benefiting. And I fear for this country, because we keep seeing visas being declared free for foreigners.
Yeah.
But is it reciprocal? Do we get free visas to go to the UK then?
Never.
Because I got my first visa rejection for the UK and my first detention at the airport at the age of 22 in the UK. And I swore to never set foot there again, you know?
Yeah.
So my question here is, why is it that we are always giving, but what are we getting in return? And that is where we fail as leaders, because those discussions are never held at the grassroots. It's always at boardrooms and, you know, high-level tables. So the scramble for Africa is coming back in form of aid, in form of partnership, in form of all these flowery words. But the hand that feeds you always dictates what you do. And that's why we do not have power over anything.
So we'll be slaves forever?
Another 60 years of it, unless now we change the leadership and we get into these offices and we put our foots down. We saw a case in point in West Africa, you know.
Yeah. In
Number
Gabon.
two, Gabon. Number two was human capital. The US has the highest number of immigrants, whether, you know, legally or an influx of it. we have, I think, many immigrants who even risen to the level of leadership. The case of Ilhan, who came straight from the refugee camp in Dadaab. I was born in 1996. The refugees came in 1991. We are having third-generation families in the camps. Over 250,000 human capital is wasting away in the refugee camps. Dadaab, Kakuma, talk of it. The amount of money, because KRA seems to be hungry to tax everybody. Can we have that discussion to recognize refugees who are born in this country or refugees who are born by second generation? Because 1991 families are having other families. And these are people who are not even allowed to go seek healthcare services at Garissa Level Hospital unless they have a permit. So we are wasting so much resources in terms of human capital, wasting away at the camps. If you look at Isli as a business hub today, it's the blood and sweat of refugees. Yeah. Pretty much, it's out there. So how many Islis can we have just by acknowledging these people as Kenyan citizens? Recognize them, give them the permits, because aid is technically a way to just hold them there forever. Use them as data, use them as pawns, proposals are written, NGOs come. There's a beautiful document currently ongoing called the Kenya Integrated Socio-Economic Development something. It's always frameworks. And I remember in 2019, 2 billion shillings was put on the table by the donors. Without accounting for anything, we do not even have enough oversight on the amount of money donors are putting in the refugee camps. And we are the legislatures here.
And you're the chairman of the finance committee here.
And, you know, today I saw the Refugee Directorate Services talked about acknowledging refugees and giving them work permits. Is that enough? We need to go a notch higher, give them the citizenships. If we realize that, you know, you can be a Kenyan by birth, naturalization,
right,
and I don't know
parent,
the one. Yeah, one of your parents, something like that. That is an option that we can explore for the refugees, because these are people who are born here, never experienced any other country, are Kenyans by right, but they have to wait for rations from the donors and the UN agencies. Yeah. So it's time that conversation has to happen for us to have other developed examples, because other countries are taking advantage of the immigrants, but we are wasting them away.
Our own.
You know, Jeff, I want to agree with Mheshimiwa here, but give a slightly different example. Let me give an example of the banking sector. So for a very long time, Kenya was afraid of foreign banks coming to the region, coming to the country, because we thought that if we have these foreign banks come, they're going to take over our economy. But banking sector, then under the leadership of then Central Bank Governor, licensed the first international banks, Standard Chartered Bank, Barclays, and CFC Stanbic. Do you know what that did, and Citibank, do you know what that did to the banking sector in the country? We saw the local banks now learning from the international banks and taking it up. Over the years, the biggest banks in terms of capital, customer, and profitability are all local owned. Equity Bank now is the largest bank in DRC Congo.
Correct.
You could talk about KCB Bank. So what am I saying? What Mheshimiwa here needs to do is bring that proposal to Parliament. And that's why
a bill I'm looking to.
Yes, you can be sure of my support. I will support it 100%. Because it's high time that we stop being afraid of foreigners, of foreign investment. Because Kenya is so good, Kenyans are so smart, that we just need to bring an innovation here. And some Kenyan somewhere without a name that you could recognize will look at it and do a better innovation. So those human capital wasting away in the camps, as Mheshimiwa here pulls up, she just needs to bring a piece of legislation. I'm going to support it. When you move that motion, I'll be there to second it. And if we recognize
Mheshimiwa, hold on. I haven't heard from this man in a while. You've been very quiet.
Okay, maybe.
I think you're still suffering jet lag from South Africa.
Okay, maybe what I can say is that because you have asked a question that about the monarchy, about the powers that were given to the presidency, and I think as long as we are still having the same system that we are having, we are going to remain to be where we are. There is a lot that needs to be done, and to correct even the mess that is happening in the National Assembly. There is a very big mistake as happening, and as young leaders, we must also accept this. Because when I was being elected, like as a young person, we could think that as young leaders, we can come together and say, yes, we can go beyond the party position and reason it out and say, yes, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is right. But right now, what is happening today, when in the parliament, the issue has come from the State House that this bill must pass, it must go through. And that is now where you asked that about the powers of the presidency. And that's what we are saying. Look at the issue of the finance bill. When we are discussing about it, you will realize that even something that somebody has a very legit thing, but the instruction has come from there that this thing has to go through.
Instructions from the top.
Yes, and the members of the parliament cannot reason beyond that and even correct anything. And we must accept that one as young leaders.
So are you saying in parliament it's different from what you anticipated?
Yes, that is obvious. Yes, I understand with that.
Is it disappointing?
It is disappointing. And I can say even before the chairman of finance here.
Yes.
And I can tell you this for free. Look at the issue of how the budgeting is done. Members of parliament were brought with the budget. And you realize, you said about for how long shall we anticipate to have a change in this country? You realize that, and that is why again we have to also to go to back to the question that the king has to apologize, because you realize that the donor funding that comes from those countries, there are things that cannot make any sense, like flight control and whatever, and they have to pay it back. We realize, you ask a question that, will this money be paid? They will tell you it has to be paid. The donor funding doesn't come for free. And that is why we are saying that this time round, we need also to ask. Look at the loans that have come when Uhuru Kenyatta went to the former president went to China. You see things like Express coming, Uganda, Kibaki, Thika Superhighway. But when we rely on those people, there's nothing that is going to come out. And again, I've taken a bill in the House.
I'm sorry, you have a bill?
Yes.
You have a bill?
Yes, I have a bill that I'm drafting.
About what?
About to address the challenge of the finance bill. And this is a thing, and I've asked that we need to review, because
you're challenging the finance bill.
Yes, you're challenging the finance bill. Hey, let me ask you, let me tell you, yes, we have to challenge it, that's a fact. Let me tell you the truth about it. And the chairman is here. Yes. You know, he's laughing.
Chairman is here.
I want to ask him a question.
Yes.
Chairman, when you came with this issue of the finance bill, you gave the Kenyans a lot of hopes that this is going to be a turnaround to the country. You're going to say that the dollar, the Kenyan shilling is going to strengthen, or the economy is going to start booming. Today, as we speak, from the bottom to the up. Yes. Today, when you ask yourself, go to these ministries. The ministries have cut off the budget. Like, let's say, regional development, they were getting like 600 million. From the previous, they are doing boreholes and everything. Today, they have been given 60 million. So, which means that these people, they are going to be sitting in the office, eating the salaries, nothing is happening. Then we are saying, look at the Kenya shilling right now. Is it really? Even the Uganda shilling is stabilizing. I was going to South Africa to get $1. It was, and by the way, let me tell you, that's why I've proposed in the parliament that we must have economists, because everyone says that Kibaki was the best economist. Everyone is relying, saying that he was the best economist. So it means that it's going to be 50-50 for us to get a president who understands the economy. That's why I've proposed in the parliament that we must have a team of economists which will be guiding the parliament. Anytime that we want to say that we want to increase the fuel of the fuel price, they should tell the parliament that these are the impetus, these are the short-term impacts that they're going to have on the economy, these are the long-term. Because now it's like when they're increasing these things, they're anticipating. Like I can give an example. I used to go home with my vehicle. Sindio? I used to pay, I put in fuel of around 14,000.
That's your guzzler. That's how much?
That is around 15,000 by that time. But today, to go with it, I have to put in around 22,000. And you see, now when I go to Nakuru, I end Nakula, I eat, I promote, I go to Kapsabet, I eat and whatever. But now you see, after they pass this thing, the fuel, now I don't go with the car. So I go with that. So that's why we are saying.
Don't forget, you should be very grateful because when you first came to Nairobi, you didn't have any money. Uluko umesota sana. Uluko umesota.
Lakini the first experience kidogo.
Kalabamizi.
You've meandered around so many topics until
you don't know which one.
I don't know now which one to respond to, but I wanted to.
Hold on.
I had something about my very good friend here, the chairman. He's one of my good friends in Parliament, as much as we are from the other side. But that issue started with Jeff is very important. And when I talked about economic emancipation of Africans and the way we didn't get independence from economic point of view, is because as much as the chairman will say, we have one of the best brains that are working in the global superpowers, in the industrial sectors, in banking sectors, insurance, but of what value? Is it commensurate? When you have foreign expatriates working here in Kenya, how much are they paid? Vis-a-vis, how much are our Kenyan expatriates working elsewhere being paid? That is the point I'm referring to. If we say that our banking sector have learned from the foreign banking systems, and now we are expanding to our neighbors. We are not talking about Congo. We are talking about Britain. Is equity in Britain? Is equity in UK? That is the trading surplus is what makes Kenya continuously an underdog, a third world. Okay? So if the moment we don't have a trade surplus, we are not gaining from our trading with the UK. Whether it's brain drain, whether it is our banking sector, whether it's M-Pesa, how much in return are we getting vis-a-vis what is getting? The moment there is a trade imbalance between the trading partners, then there is no way you are going to progress economically. Now, if you look at a nation as an entity, as a business entity, you must exchange for you to progress. You must gain. For you to go home and dress and buy a car, you must earn from citizen, Royal Media. You must gain. What are you giving Royal Media? You are giving your services, your expertise. So it must be commensurate to your salary. That is the same economic system we have internationally. There's no difference. So if you don't look at a country of what is your energy, what is your power, what are you selling to the world, are you getting value for your money? The moment you don't get value for your money, even whether it is M-Pesa, whether it is your expertise, whether it is your equity bank, is it value for the money? In the international system, if you don't get that value for money, then there's a trade imbalance. You have a trade deficit. They will never progress.
Okay, I want to take a break right now. I'll come back and talk about all your leadership qualities. Mheshimiwa Salasia, you are no Elijah Mwangale. You are no Masinde Muliro, let's face it. And wherever they are now, they're probably spinning in their graves. Amisi, you are no Kijana Wamalwa.
I'm closer.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You people don't, other than the chairman of finance, he's the only one we hear, and this because of the finance bill. But the rest of you are quiet like church mouses.
Jeff, do you watch Parliament? Because I make noise there.
You?
I do.
When was the last time you made noise?
You all assume maybe I look like someone else, but I make a lot of noise. You should watch Parliament proceedings.
And Chairman, maybe if I can tell
Hold on, hold the thought.
Yes.
Because you are no Musinda Muliro.
Okay.
Let's take a break. This is a great conversation with the young people who are not afraid to speak out. And this is what we like to see. The new Kenya where we're not afraid to speak out and they want to promote change in this country. Change is up to them. Keep tweeting at Koinange Jeff, at Citizen TV Kenya, the hashtag JKLIVE. JKLIVE takes a break. We'll be back.